Funerals actually take a lot more planning than I expected. With us using island cuisine for the first time, of course we were iffy, but once they came and showed us their service, their food, tasted their food and everything, we definitely use them again because their service and food is just awesome.
Babe, I forgot the ice. Be right back.
Okay. Get some snacks too.
Okay.
Hey, excuse me, sir. Did you forget something?
Actually, yes, we forgot a bag of ice for our drinks.
Worth one Pobetsu. We could take care of that for you. Follow me. You said you needed ice?
Yes, ma'am.
Is there anything else you needed?
Yes, maybe some snacks.
Sure. Okay, your order's complete, sir. Your order should be here shortly.
All right, great, thank you.
Sir, here's your order.
All right. Suzuki.
One Pobetsu.
I'll ride with the horses, I'll swim through the sea, I'll climb to the mountain tops. Won't you come follow me? I'll take time to notice all that I see, and after I've come so far, you know where I'll be. I'll fly away, fly away, fly away, fly away home. I'll fly away, fly away, fly away, fly away home. But life is a vision, that's how it should be. The world is a canvas, and the choices are free. At the end of the journey, where all is complete, they'll all wonder where I've gone, but you know where I'll be. I'll fly away, fly away, fly away, fly away home. I'll fly away, fly away, fly away, fly away home. Our dreams last forever, for all that we know. The roads come together, and that's where we'll go.
The pompous
and elite wish we go away.
because we are
Real and direct.
no interest owns us.
And we have no interest but
The truth. Together we are exposing.
corruption.
Together we will reform criminal justice
Together,
We are fighting violence.
against women and children.
we here at
Candid
We'll shine the light.
on every corner of darkness.
Together we are giving a voice.
to the voiceless.
And forgotten.
Stay lit.
Together.
Together,
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 together.
we are giving a voice
to the voiceless and forgotten.
We are Candid News Group.
Buenas Marianas in Micronesia. I'm Troy Torres.
And I'm Johnny Rosario.
And I'm Fred Bordallo.
Welcome, Fred.
All right, thank
You're
you.
my
Troy.
old co-worker.
Yep, that's right.
My co-worker of 4 years, right?
That's right. 4 years, and then I retired in May, so 4 years and 5 months.
So you can
as
lie to
chief of
everyone
police.
and tell them that I was a nice co-worker.
Oh yeah. Where's Artie? Where's Philio and Guerrero? They're all there.
They freaking left. They could not stand me. We're like, we're out of here, yo. Well, welcome to our studios here on the 7th floor of the DNA building in Hagåtña, Guam. Welcome, Candid Land. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We have Chalikilis, coffee, and change. Well, you
No
have
coffee tonight.
Well, we have
all
Polar
got
Pops.
Soda. We all got soda.
What did you get me for soda?
I got you Coke.
Coke also. Thank you.
Coke, not
Coke.
Pepsi.
I got me my Mountain Dew, or I got me ice. I have Mountain Dew with ice.
You have ice with a splash of Mountain Dew.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, yeah.
And I didn't get Chalikilis. I actually got some clam chowder.
Can you tell me if it's good?
Yeah, as soon as I get a spoon.
Oh, sorry,
I
here.
got my spoon.
There.
No. Go for it.
You can, or just drink it like this. Like, oh no, here.
No.
You can, because I drink mine like this. Oh my gosh, you just really turned on a bunch of guys and lesbians watching tonight. Let's
Delicious. Troy will not eat clam chowder.
I will not eat clam or clam chowder.
Yeah.
Let's start with that bumper music.
So bad. Sorry guys, I mic'd everybody up but me.
Is my computer hiding my stomach? Yes, it is, right?
Yes.
Oh, okay, good. This is called strategy.
You're
Don't worry, the armrest is blocking.
They
your
called me
stomach.
Chubster Bordallo when
Chubster
I left.
Bordallo.
That was replaced by
Well, actually, Fred was showing me pictures from his. I guess the Marines have yearbooks,
Yes.
and he was showing me his picture. I was like, Fred, that's you.
125 pounds.
And you were bald then, but now you got hair. You know,
Still bald.
still bald.
Naturally bald.
Thank you for joining us. You were my co-worker for 4 years. Fred Bordallo was the chief of police between 2011 and late 2014, early 2015.
2015, yeah, May 2015.
May 2015, and the really, and I was communications director at the time. Then I moved to senior advisor later. It was later. The really sad thing about Fred leaving was that he was replaced by J.I. Cruz, and there's a whole police corruption issue. We're not going to ask Fred about J.I. Cruz, of course, because that's like, for him that wouldn't be cool, because he's running for senator and all that stuff. But we are going to talk about police corruption. But before we get to that, there are just some things that we need to get out of the way. First of all, are you a pet lover?
Yes, I'm a pet lover.
What you got?
I like dogs. I'm allergic to cats.
Okay,
Right?
okay.
Now, my kids all have dogs right now because it's just me and my wife. We don't have a dog. But I love my neighbor's cats coming around because there are no snakes or
Yeah,
rats coming around.
They get rid of
They're
snakes.
they get
Well,
rid of
since you
snakes.
don't,
Yep.
since you don't have any pets right now, here we go.
Yeah, we're suckering you into this. So first of all, now this is not for Fred because he's allergic, but Geely, I think I'm
it's
saying.
Jiggly, or no, it's Geely.
Well, first is Geely. This is the orange one, right? That one on your
one
screen right now is
against
Jiggle. We can start with Jiggle. Let's start with Jiggle. Stretch it. Eric is never prepared for these pets. Well, anyway, so if you want to adopt a pet, and really it's the best thing to do. It only costs $125. It includes the microchip, which is already like, it's a good deal. But it also includes the spay or neuter. And if it's a spay, that's a pretty good deal, right? Because spaying is pretty expensive. And it also includes the first shots.
And the chip.
Yeah, and the microchip. So all three of those you get for $125. But most importantly, you get to take home the new love of your life.
Yeah.
And you get to save an animal from being euthanized. This is Jiggle. Jiggle is that's the naughtiest looking kitten I've ever seen, actually. But apparently Jiggle is I think they say Jiggle is pretty naughty in the right. Gigil. Gigil. No, maybe it is Palawan. What does it mean?
This is a PG-13 show.
Oh, like a Gigila de Lam, right? That's a bad word. I'm a Gigila de Lam or something. I'm Palawan. So I know some of these words, but I'm not saying it right. It's a pretty bad word.
That was pretty darn close.
It's like saying Chadananamu.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Next is Geely, who's a little bit older, but still a kitten. That one looks like a real regal cat. Like the kind that will just snob you all day.
Yeah.
Very composed, very snobby. This is Charissa Tenorio right here. Just walk on right by you. I love you, Charissa. Okay, and then the next one is Rhea. Rhea is a puppy. Look at that little scrapper. Oh, so cute. Okay, Fred, you can take home this puppy. Santa Rita, right? You live in Santa Rita?
I live in Santa Rita.
You can take home. This can be the newest resident of Santa Rita.
It's just me and my wife. We're grandparents.
And now Rhea.
but I'm a full-time worker. I don't have that much time.
Okay,
but my mom just loves fox terriers. She had a fox terrier.
The last one is Sir Duke, who's a little bit older. I think he's 3 years old, if I'm not mistaken.
He's potty trained already.
Yeah, and he knows how to walk on a leash. This used to be someone's dog, I'm pretty sure. Fred, can you at least promise us that over the next couple of weeks you'll go to the animal facility and take a look? Just go there.
Game, right?
You're over in Jigo.
Yeah.
So you'll go there?
Okay.
And take a look? Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Fred.
All right.
On behalf of animal lovers like yourself everywhere, thank you for making that commitment. Too bad we didn't ask the others that. Right?
Because they're all loaded.
Oh, that's
all
right.
All of them are loaded with animals.
Every new candidate who we've interviewed is an animal lover.
Yes.
And all of them have a lot of animals.
Yep.
And they even have stray animals that they feed.
Yeah.
You know?
So,
and by law, when you feed an animal, it's your animal.
Yeah.
You're right?
So John Ananich, who's like, I think he was probably your officer,
I didn't think he owned cats.
I know. I had no...
John Ananich, back in 2005, he was one of the cadets that came in when I was in charge of training and staff development.
Okay.
And he passed with flying colors like everyone else. A lot of...
So, he's like, what, 6 foot tall, like huge guy, Yeah. And he was like, we have 3 cats and we feed 7 more outside. I'm like, cats? Really? I thought you had a Doberman Pinscher.
Yeah. I didn't
own a Rottweiler.
I didn't know I was allergic until all of a sudden, every time there's a cat that's near me, I would start sneezing and then starting to come up,
because of hair.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's like me around Republicans. I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding. So Fred and I were Republicans together, actually, in the Republican Calvo administration.
Oh, okay. Now, can I get a chance to explain how that happened?
Yes, please do.
I was a captain in the Guam Police Department at the time. And what happened is, remember Lieutenant James Santos, right?
Yes.
He said...
He's running for Mayor Jigo.
Yeah, he's running for Mayor Jigo, who said, Cap, come over to the Calvo Tenorio, Mighty. It was in Mighty. Come over, just listen to what, Senator Eddie Calvo, is going to. And I went there, and when I came in, all of a sudden, they said, "Hey, here's a Democrat Fred." Oh my God, and they just started saying, so we have a Bordallo here, and then I started looking around. Hey, what's happening? And I saw all these other people around, like Frank Cariola. Hey, that's a Democrat.
There were a lot of Democrats in that campaign.
So. So I just ended up there listening, and I just said, okay, and I heard some of his views and stuff like that, right? And then after that, I make my decision when I went to the polls. But if you notice, Troy, you didn't see me going around putting palas or being part of the organization. I never campaigned, but it was
because that would have been illegal, right?
Yeah, because I'm classified. So Adolfo Scambleri did the transition, and he listed me on the Calvo transition report. I was one of, I think, 5 people. There was Maurice Sayama. There was a guy, former TSA person.
Yes.
And then I got selected out of those 5 to be the chief of police, right? And
yes. It was controversial.
Yeah.
Because here was a Republican governor coming in.
Yes.
And why didn't you choose a Republican?
Yeah.
Why did you choose a Democrat?
Yeah.
But I think it was all part of that. It was whoever could do a
But
a good
Senator Adolfo Palacios, he actually said to me, "Hey, Captain, I know, you still got more years, and at the end of 4, let's say it goes all the way to 4 years, you have enough to retire. So just put in your application." So I actually put my application, my resume down over there at the Calvo Tenorio Transition Office. And then I got the call in the middle of, from Governor Calvo at the time when we were in a staff meeting, saying, "Hey, would you accept the position?" And that's
Did it go something like this? Did it go something like, "Fred, my buddy, Fred, this is Eddie Calvo. This is Eddie Calvo. You know what, buddy? I've had a lot of respect for you, and I've watched you over the years. I see you on TV, and I know people tell me that you're a man of integrity, and we need someone like you to lead our Guam Police Department."
It was very short. It was very short. Troy just said, "I'm looking for a chief of police, and would you accept?" It was very short. He didn't say buddy. But the thing about it too is, after going through each rank in the department, I started realizing, and I talked to Governor Felix Camacho, a while back when they had all the governors down in 2 months. I think I was promoted in the Republican administration than the Democrat, because during Ada Blas, I was promoted to PO 2 and PO 3 Ada Blas administration. On Governor Gutierrez Bordallo, I was promoted to Sergeant 1, but in the Camacho Moreland, I was promoted to Lieutenant, and then the Camacho Cruz Captain, and then you count how many times. Can we have more?
And then you became chief of police.
Yeah, and then became chief of police under the Republican
administration. Yeah. And then you ran for lieutenant governor with Governor Carl Gutierrez in the 2018 election. Just briefly, what was that like?
Well, actually, 2016. Remember, I ran for senator first.
Yes.
2016. Yeah, and 2016 was actually real good for me to get to be out there in the public. Of course, as a Democrat candidate, everyone looked at me. Oh, this came from the Calvo, I got a chance to hear the issues during the time when I ran in 2016. The issues were these pay raises. They're happening at the legislature. They were looking at other issues of the what do you call that? The pay raise issues. Simon Sanchez High School was an issue. I was there with the other new candidates. I think one of them was Therese Terlai, first running with me, and together with Talana Nelson and Jermaine Alerta. And we were at Simon Sanchez, and it's just that situation of it not being built. And then on as you're saying, Troy, the 2018, when I ran with Governor Gutierrez, that is another a real good, valuable experience, because I met a lot of individuals and who in the Gutierrez camp, and there's issues like a person in Nimitz Hill who still gets their water. They have no water hookups or anything. The basic quality of life issues, and at that time in 2018 when we were running, I know you were with the Rodriguez Cruz campaign, right? But I'm sure you heard this, like, why are they closing down police stations, Why is it that, we were hearing stuff of the police dropping. When I left, the department had 343 full-time officers and 110 reservists, right?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
You're right.
When
I
I,
remember
left,
these
right?
numbers, yeah.
Now all of a sudden they're down to 289 in 3.5 years. 289 full-time officers, and the reserve force. Guess what? Right now it dropped down. There's probably only maybe 20, maybe 18 active reservists. They all left the force.
And most of this drop happened immediately after, not immediately, but in the 3-4 years following your departure from the police department.
Yeah, from the police department.
And that is, and I'm not going to ask you to comment on it, but that is the J.I. Cruz tenure when he was the chief of police.
That's correct. That's correct.
Now, police corruption, and speaking of J.I. Cruz, police corruption to us is a big deal.
Yeah.
And it should be to everybody. Police corruption is the worst kind of corruption. And you know, when you were coming onto the show, I wanted to talk to you a lot about public corruption, and you know, that might not put you in the best light when we have a discussion about your former boss, Governor Lulian Guerrero, or your other former boss, Governor Eddie Calvo, or whatever, right? But then I remembered this morning, I was like, you know, actually, Fred Bordallo actually has a record of fighting police corruption, and I remember that it was that you were the one who reopened the Blue House scandal.
Yes.
And I thought, there's been no one else actually. No other attorney general, chief of police. Was this the attorney general that you worked with on this? Was Liz Barrett Anderson?
Yeah. No. Okay. Actually, what happened is this is when I was when I reopened the Blue House investigation. There was a federal case going on, and they were targeting, of course, the
testimony came to light.
And testimony came to light, right? And then, but when that happened, see, Alicia Limtiaco was the U.S. attorney. But that case is as old as 2008. I wasn't chief of police at the time. It was during Paul Suba's time. They even said the SWAT raided the place, and the criminal investigations unit were with them, and they found individuals inside the Blue House, right? Case. So when it came to light on 2011 or 2012, when the federal case was ongoing, some of these officers were on the prosecution side of the courtroom, of the federal courtroom, testifying against that lady, right? So
the late Song Judge.
Yeah. So when Governor Calvo, asked me about the situation, I said, "Man, this is an old case that goes back to 2008." And Alicia Limtiaco was the local attorney, and it was Lenny Rapadas who was on the federal side.
And then it switched. That's right.
Yeah.
And I was sort of saying, why wasn't any local AG with Alicia, right? Of course, Janela interviewed me in PNC at that time during the 2018 election, and I said, you have to ask what they call Alicia Limtiaco. Then it was the headlines, PNC, Fred Bordallo blames Alicia Limtiaco.
Yeah, well, of course, leave it to Janela. So what happened was that this testimony was unsealed in federal court. And it was the testimony of Officer Manila. And then, but probably the most heart-wrenching testimony was from two of the girls. Two of the women who were victims of Sandra Chow at the Blue House. I think Sakin Wiria and the unnamed 16-year-old girl. But you could hear her voice in the recordings. And it was heartbreaking to listen. And so you reopened the internal case at Guam Police Department. And then it led to the opening of a criminal case that led to the indictments.
Led to the indictments.
Okay, can we stop there?
Yeah.
Because right now, as we speak, we have a trend in the Guam Police Department. Whenever we find out about a case, and most of the cases that come to us, already there's a case open or shut. They closed it already for whatever reason. And at that time, when you received this information, did anybody have to file another complaint? You get what I'm saying, Troy? You see how we have to kickstart it now? At that time, did somebody...
No, he just made the decision.
so we don't always have to wait for someone to make a complaint. You, as a chief of police, saw something wrong and kicked into action.
That's it.
And
against your own
I love
officers.
it. I love it
against
so much.
his own officers.
I love it. I love that so much.
What was
Thank
that
you.
like in the department to have done that? to your...
Here's the thing. Thank you for asking that, Troy. You know because I'm glad the listeners, get a chance to know from my history what I've done. In the police department, way back before that, I was on the Marine Corps. I brought my Marine career book, and the thing
show
about,
everyone, show that to the camera.
the Marines. I was in the Marine Corps. Right? It's old, right? But I started out in the Marines as a corrections officer, so I worked in correctional facilities, and I seen, and I worked in 3 different correctional facilities. If you have this sort of like you think you're a boss, you can get hurt really bad in a correctional facility by the clients in there. So you have to be very respectful to the clients that are locked up there, and because they're going to be out, right? And so that was my first, working the criminal justice system in the corrections. A lot of police officers that don't have an experience of working corrections officers, in a correction prison system, they won't understand that kind of thing, right? And they're always so used to that, carrying the gun when they're out there, right? The gun bill. After the first 5 years in the Marine Corps corrections, I was a recruiting officer. So I was now working in a recruiting office, and I would work on these projects in Louisiana where these people need a job, right? And they're trying to get out of the ghetto or some places, right? And I would visit high schools. I would talk to these people in the street, young adults, and said the Marine Corps had these occupation specialties. And so that was, and then talking to high schools and being in career conferences to talk to people to try and enlist it. So that's my first thing. But in the police department, one of the specialized units I worked in is traffic investigation. So it's the fatality unit, right? And you have to be very methodical, when you're in fatality investigations. My first specialized unit. After about 10 years in patrol, I spent 3.5 years working in internal affairs. I worked for 3 different chiefs. Adolph Scambilleri.
I love that guy.
Yep.
Love that guy.
What do you call that? Jack Chamizo, very low key, former master at arms. They said, and during Governor Ricky Bordallo's term, and then also the Governor Gutierrez, and then James Marquez, right? I was an internal affairs investigator for 3. I worked for Lawrence Kitchichu, who was the supervisor, and then another Mike Salas off island. But I wouldn't be where I was at, understanding the Civil Service Commission kind of things, and the administrative investigation, how that plays out with criminal investigations, because I had that 3.5 years of just, and people would say, oh man, when they see me, oh, they're internal affairs around, put your stuff, that's the kind of like feedback we would
because
get
you were
from
doing your
clients.
job.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then after internal affairs, I went back to patrol because I was promoted to sergeant, and I was a field supervisor, deputy when the early out, deputy precinct, Agate precinct. Then I got into narcotics. And what a thing to get into narcotics, to be a drug commander for narcotics, a violent street crimes task force.
I got into narcotics too.
Yeah. Yes. But here's the thing. I had to do homework because the people that I had to be in charge of knew more. They were former DEA task force officers, and I had to get really in depth. What is this ICE? How do you measure it? Because I might be the one in court, right?
Yeah.
To say, when you confiscate it, was it the same amount or whatever as... So I had to really do a lot of homework in there as a supervisor. And then I was in narcotics for about, the Violent Street Crimes Task Force for about 2.5 years. And then Earl Agagi became the first during the Camacho Moylan. And then he knew I was going through school to get a second master's in human relations, right? And he asked me, what's human relations about? And I told Major Earl Agagi, you can get into substance abuse counseling if I want to choose that career, right? But he goes, well, that's good. So you go over to training and staff. I want you to be in charge of training and staff. That's where in that 2005 when Izazaki came in, Ananich was a cadet, right? John Ananich and all these recruits.
Frank Leon Groh, another senatorial candidate, might have been an officer around that time as well, right?
Well, I think 2005, yeah, he may have been, but he was mostly on the SWAT.
Okay.
Captain Leon Groh was mostly on the SWAT side of the house. But again, like I said, just that broad experience, and I always advise officers, don't stay in patrol for your whole career, or don't go patrol and SWAT patrol. broaden yourself. Get into internal affairs. Get into traffic investigations. Get into training and staff, right? Learn to move around. Those are different. Those are real good specialties to get into.
So let's reel this back. How? So did all that prepare you to deal with whatever backlash?
As chief of police, it really prepared me because I was always have to be aware of the 60-day rule. Civil Service Commission, right? And I actually asked the AG at the time, and I think it was Elizabeth Barron-Ansher at the time. By the time I was chief, she gave me an attorney, and I used that attorney to review my internal affairs reports, right? And that's
I think it was Donna Lawrence, right?
Well, Donna Lawrence first. Then after Donna Lawrence, there was another attorney there, right? And I used that. Then what I would also do as chief of police is I took 2 sergeants, because they're already at that level, right? I assigned one to the Joint Terrorism Task Force of the FBI, and I assigned to the other one to the Corruption Task Force of the FBI. Troy, right after I left, both those 2 sergeants were pulled out after I retired. And it started circling around. Why did the one from the Terrorism Task Force get pulled out, and why did the one from the Corruption Task Force of the FBI get pulled out?
Wow.
So
I think we can surmise.
Yeah.
There's another thing that I just as we're talking, I'm remembering, and it's about the Mandania Drug Task Force.
Yeah.
So Ray Tenorio was your Uber boss, right? He was so-called in charge of public safety or whatever.
Yeah.
And I do remember that when you were still the chief of police, Ray Tenorio, as early as then, wanted to put together this anti-drug strike task force. At the time, it wasn't called Mandania, but I remember him raising this issue, and I thought you were most likely you were in the room because you're the chief of police.
Yeah.
And I remember being, of course, saying, look, there are too many problems with that. So the Mandania Drug Task Force actually comes about after you leave, because J.I. Cruz manages to convince the governor to stand up this task force over the objections of a couple of people at Adelup. And so hindsight being 2020, we see how that turned out. We see the corruption that happened with the Mandania Drug Task Force.
And what a lot of people don't talk about is J.I. Cruz used that Mandania Drug Task Force to get his degree off island.
Yeah. In Fiji
the grant
or something.
money and all of that. So people don't really talk about that.
We'll talk about it.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll have a whole show on that. But absolutely. But what would you have done differently about that task force?
Well, here's the thing. Remember how I said I was a drug commander for the Violent Street Crimes Task Force? Mm-hmm. When I was the drug commander for the Violent Street Crimes Task Force, it also gave me an opportunity to sometimes meet with other people, from other government agencies, mental health and sort of substance abuse people, and they would say, "Hey, my sister Annie, who's a doctor. Her meet see Dr. Ellen Bez, right? Mm-hmm. She had healing hearts, right?" And sometimes they would say, "Hey, you're during the time I was Violent Street Crimes Task Force. Sure, we did a lot of drug raids, but what I always thought of, okay, there's a 3-legged stool, and I said this during the KOM interview. It's a 3-legged stool. Okay, we're taking care of the enforcement one, right? DA does the top level importation. We do the street level drug interdiction, right? But where's the substance abuse portion, and where's the anti-drug education portion of this? DARE, drug resistance education or something. It was a Los Angeles Police Department program that just went nationwide, right? Effectively to educate our youth and our young people to get away from our drugs. The substance abuse is another, because people have to fly off island. It's expensive if they want to get substance abuse treatment. So those are the 2 legs that are missing. So this is what I would have done different. I would have said to Lieutenant Governor Ray Tenorio, "Hey, you see enforcement officers maybe around here in Mandania, but where's these other 2? Where's the anti-drug education portion? Where's the substance abuse people? Why aren't we looking at the statistics of how many addicts are now recovered, right? Why don't we put that out too? How many are not? And what are we doing wrong with that?" Same thing too as education. Is it effective or is it not effective? On our education outreach for that, right? And the reason why I say that again is because, Lieutenant Governor Ray during the time he was mostly concentrating when we were at this Peace Officer Standards Training Commission of, we need to look at your, could your reserves transition, can your reserve police officers transition to a full-time officer? And I said, of course. A lot of these reserve officers, 70 of them apply at Dedido Precinct, and you're left with 32, the first graduation, remember, down in Adelaide? 77 applying. We're letting the community come in. I think that's more powerful than sitting in a coffee shop, coffee with a cop or a neighborhood watch. Actually bringing, I think having more community coming in. Open the doors, right? And let some of these people come in, right?
Right?
Yeah.
And good management.
Yeah. So I was shocked by the time that how that was changing. Of all of a sudden, after the 18 reserve cycle graduated, they told them, you're not going to stay home or just report to the reserve unit. And then what they did with the reserve program, they put it under the SWAT thing, the special operations, pushing it away. Reserve programs and CAPE programs are volunteers and policing programs. That's a robust community-oriented policing program.
And people in the community trust them.
Yeah.
When you become your neighbors trust you, so you know what they know. They're the ones that know what's going on in the community.
I had a reserve officer who was a tire shop repairman at Goodyear in Timony, but then he'll say to his boss, "Okay, I finished my shift. Go into the shower area of the Goodyear Tire in Timony and change this police uniform." Everyone go, "We didn't know that guy was a police officer."
So he comes out as Superman.
It's just knowing that your neighbor next door is getting into his car and he's going to work and he has a police. Was that a reserve or full time? It doesn't matter. You have a cop who's staying next door who might be a deterrent, to the crime happening in the village.
What I remember, Fred, when you were the chief of police, is that every year when we had to write the State of the Island address, Guam Police Department was always a proud point.
Yeah.
And there was always something good to write that was worth writing into the State of the Island address. And I remember that you were accessible to people.
Yes.
But the most important thing to me and to Kandit is that you actually did tackle police corruption.
Yes.
So everyone can say whatever, right? But you actually did tackle police corruption. That's very meaningful to us, and we appreciate that. Let's move on to an issue of public corruption.
Okay.
Now this is where, we just filed the only story we did today was about Bic Sobti. So, those of you out in Kandit land who have been following our stories about Bic Sobti, Guam businessman Bic Sobti, it started with how he fleeced the Commonwealth of the Northern Marianas with a $2.533 million invoice to provide PPEs, thermometers, and things like that at highly jacked up prices. He basically price gouged, which the U.S. Attorney General at the time said was one of the biggest things, or actually the top priority of the Justice Department during the start of the pandemic. It was for just overly priced face masks, thermometers, face shields, and all that stuff, right? That was our first story. And then we found out about RPM Yamaha, which is another Bic Sobti company, selling these ATVs and stuff to the Commonwealth government during this pandemic. There's suspicion that those ATVs were used in the deer meat for dinner trip to Pagan, and I think the Commonwealth legislature is going to find out about that. Then we covered Bic's confirmation hearing for the Guam airport, his reappointment to the Guam airport by Governor Lulian Guerrero, where he told Senator Telos Hadigui that he is not under investigation by the CNMI legislature, when in fact he is. So it was a bold-faced lie. He also told Vice Speaker Selena Nelson that he did not have any conflict of interest as a member of the airport board. And according to documents recently disclosed today by the airport, that's another bold-faced lie. Bic Sobti has a definitive conflict of interest when he sold more than $77,000 in clothes, PPEs, and small vehicles to the Guam airport while he was a member of the airport board. And mind you, these documents only go back to 2016. I think it's that whole, you only keep documents for a certain number of years. So the documents prior to 2016 are probably in boxes somewhere that it would take time to gather up. But as a member of the airport board and having influence and power over its budget, its procurement authority, policies regarding its operations, this guy did business with the airport. And he bought, what is some of this stuff? an aluminum framed trailer for $8,600, another aluminum framed trailer with a lighter weight capacity for $3,199 each. Button-down shirt with and without pocket, uniform shirts for supervisors, blue down with collar, dark navy blue. So 10 each. He sold each of them for $38.95. Dark blue button-down short sleeve shirts with logo, 5 each for $38.95 a piece. 170 shirts, each at $35.95. It's another airport uniform thing. That equaled $6,111.50 for one shirt order.
And he was doing business with the airport while he's on the board.
While he's on the board, which is it's against the law. It's a petty misdemeanor, but nonetheless, it's against the law. And this should be enough to pull his confirmation from or his packet from the legislature. At least I hope it would be. Fred, this is just, and the list goes on and on about all this stuff that the airport bought from him. Bic Sobti he is not like, this is dime a dozen. This is dime a dozen stuff in the government Guam. And it's not just the Leon Guerrero administration. This was happening in the Calvo administration. And I know you don't have personal knowledge of it because you weren't at Adelup during the Calvo years. You were just one part of the cabinet. But I mean, you may have heard about the health insurance contract and how that was always skewed toward the Calvos. You may have heard other things that were happening in the final term of the Calvo administration when you weren't there regarding contracts and all that. And then we not at the same level in the Leon Guerrero administration, not at that huge level that it was in the Calvo administration, but there are these things that have happened in the Leon Guerrero administration, like, for instance, the Pacific Star contract during the pandemic. Like the signing over of bonds to a trustee account at the Bank of Guam that just stink to holy hell and just smell like corruption. So, first of all, what are you going to do about corruption? But secondly, how are you going to convince our viewers that you're not going to be a rubber stamp for Governor Leon Guerrero, seeing that you were a member of her cabinet?
Well, thank you for that question, Troy and Johnny. You know, the whole thing about what you explained about government corruption, I've learned this too, even when I went to the FBI leadership school down in Quantico. I was selected to go there. And I was around other different chiefs of police and the challenges that they had in their jurisdictions. You know, some people say, who's the chief law enforcement officer? Is the chief of police? No, it's the office of the attorney generals that's the chief law enforcement officer. And that relationship should be really good between a chief of police and the office of attorney general, especially even to the point that I would always suggest I need some reports from the AGs to tell me if my officers, if their case was, why was it denied for prosecution? Was it denied due to statutory limitations? Was it denied because of Fourth Amendment and violation on the officers who completely disregarded Fourth Amendment and just went in and opened the trunk, and went into there? And police corruption deteriorates the confidence people have of their government. I studied government at the University of Guam, and when I was, me and my wife were both working at night, going to school. She was at SRF, and I was just a police officer but we worked our way through school. And I remember the conversations at the University of Guam and the public administration. You're majoring in government. So that means you want government to be clean. You want government to be transparent. You want government to be accountable. Now that I'm, also running for a seat when I'm a senator, this is one of the values that, of course, that I bring. You saw on my campaign sign, courage and compassion. I'm going to make the hard decisions because it takes courage to bring these hard decisions to be confrontational when you see something is not right.
So you will be confrontational.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll be confrontational. Okay. And one of the things too is to when it comes down to corruption, right? To procurement and all this, right? And I have oversight over an agency, as a senator, oversight. Called an oversight hearing, right? Sometimes there's the other method of calling a roundtable meeting just to get to know what this agency is doing, right? How transparent they are, right? And at the same time, understand that when you call for a hearing, even if you swear them in, when they come in to testify at the legislature, that anything they say, that might be against their Fifth Amendment could be sometimes you would expect them, they might bring an attorney with them if we call an oversight hearing if it involves a criminal matter. So those are some of the kind of things too that it's the listeners out there, you can count on me that when I'm in as a senator in the legislature, that if I call an oversight hearing for an agency and I'm looking at these things, it's me making sure that they're operating as they're supposed to operate, right? And I bring the experience I had as a chief of police, as a veterans director, and I bring the education piece that I had with me, where we talked about this theoretically, about the downfall of leaders in government and how they went, how all of a sudden they got tempted, to take from public money and misspend it and misallocate, and think they won't get caught. This is a small island, and it's just hard to hide anything like that, right? And that's why one of the most important things is keep that check and balance. I said this in KO when they interviewed me. You came from the Lulongoro. What makes you think you won't put them check and balance? You'll be a rubber stamp? No, I'm not going to be a rubber stamp. Okay. There are a lot of good people working in the Leongoro Tenorio administration. A lot of good people. And there might be some of their own agenda. And I addressed them, and I said to them, hey, don't cross that gray line, because I come from that law enforcement background, and that values of integrity, honesty, being firm, fair, and professional, and I have the courage and compassion to know what to do.
Fred, I'm actually really surprised at your answers. And I asked Johnny and Eric, I was telling them, I was like, I don't think the interview with Fred is going to go good, because man, he can talk a lot and he'll be evasive, and then we're going to have to call him out. But you're answering these things pretty directly. Thank you for that. Do you have any follow-up to that?
Just on the gambling.
The gambling.
Okay, the gambling, Guam voted no.
Yes.
Right? How would, if you make it into the legislature, they found loopholes to keep one machine running, one kind of machine. If you get in there, if Talina's bill doesn't pass, or if it just dies because it's the election and she needs to just stop it, right? If nothing happens, what would you do as a senator to fix those loopholes?
Yes, this is my position on gambling, right? Let me first say that when one time I read this book on President Trump, they asked him about gambling because he was going to put casinos in Atlantic City, New Jersey, right? And he said, if the people can play the stock market, that's the biggest casino in the world, right? And I said, wow, But my own position locally is I'm against casino gambling, and I'll tell you why. There are some organized crime elements, in our region that can take advantage, And at the same time, I agree with Miss Ariola, that it's not something that's economically feasible by running, a casino gambling establishment.
About Jackie Marati.
Yeah, Jackie Marati, right? So I agree with her, right? Now, every Liberation Day, and I just want to put this out, would I be against the games of chance and the gambling that happens just on the Liberation Day? They give everybody a chance to, to have a good time there. I won't be against. I'm going to just say this. I'm not against that, to have a good time on Liberation Day when that carnival does come up. To have games of chance. Those monies that they get from there should be accountable. I think the mayor's council, do that, and it should go to the right programs. Maybe substance abuse program, maybe a community, a program that helps, and it should go there to that, right? And gives the vendors a chance to participate. Where in the celebration, and just only that. After that thing, hey, it better not operate because it's illegal, and gambling, casino gambling, any gambling like that is illegal. And we should also have the conversation about what the church does too when they hold their bingos too, right?
I don't think they do that anymore.
They don't do that anymore?
I don't think so.
Okay, so if they don't do that, I just want to say
the community centers, senior centers.
Yeah. So just to make sure that we're monitoring that, to say, hey, if we're going to have this honest conversation, let's talk about gambling where it happens, that's being supported by a government entity.
So
can you go back to organized crime?
Yeah.
So you do admit that these gambling parlors, there's some form of funny business, funny money.
Yeah, it's
Criminal
exploited. Yeah,
money.
it's exploited. It is
Okay.
exploited. Those
Okay,
gaps
thank
are
you
there.
so much.
Yeah.
Thank you for acknowledging that.
There's a so on some of the comments there's a bit of hesitation still with regard to would you be a rubber stamp for the current governor? So maybe we should take this at a different angle.
Yeah.
What honest criticism? I'm sure there's a lot of achievements that you can extol about Governor Luliangro, right?
Yeah.
But I think what our audience probably wants to hear is your honest assessment of, or your honest criticism of the governor's administration.
Yeah. Well, remember what you said about the Pacific Star and everything that happened there, right? Because it really bothered me when I started to see that happen. I go, what was wrong, or what can I say the analysis of happened there? Now, as far back as 2006, I was always involved in pandemic planning, right? Pandemic planning. That was during the Camacho, I think, Cruz administration, right? And what happened is we come up with a unified command system, right? And there's a administrative finance, there's an operations, there's a planning, there's operations, administrative finance, planning, and then there's logistics, right? The administrative finance is your crucial one. Who should be up there in emergency management? That's civil defense, right? You were always up there too, Troy, on the JIG portion. The people who should be there as a representative of the legislature's finance committee, BBMR, DOA, GSA. Better have someone from the AG's office there. So when you're looking at all that procurement using emergency management to procure emergency, hotels or stuff.
But we know
like that,
that's
right?
not what happened in the Pacific
Yeah, there you
Star
go.
case.
That's what I'm saying. That's a gap right there. It didn't happen. I mean, according to what
So
I was
you are
hearing.
critical of.
Yeah, I'm critical of
okay.
that, right?
Okay.
So it has to be better to ensure there's no one exploiting that. And then next thing you know, it came out that individuals were using it to sleep there, or and that destroys the trust and confidence, right? Now I have to just say, you do the honorable thing, and the chief of staff resigned, right? So that's the other part of it. It does result in that situation where people now do the honorable thing and submit your resignation, and say it's time to go.
Cool.
Right?
Good.
You have other related to gambling or
No,
another question?
no.
What was that other question that you had?
I just because we know that your family, you come from a family
Yeah.
of politicians, right?
Yeah,
They're-
politicians.
Yes, people in the government. How would you differentiate yourself from that?
Okay, here I was asked this question about what is a politician, because remember I was always studying public administration, and then there's the School of Political Science, right? Actually, we credit the president, because I'm an avid history reader, President Woodrow Wilson, who is the president of Princeton, who separated those two schools, political science and public administration. A politician, if you really look at the dictionary, the definition of it, a person in the business of the art and science of government, right? It doesn't seem like anything negative there. So, I know the political science students, and I did teach a class in political science at University of Guam. And I said, what are you gonna be when you get your degree in political sciences? I'm gonna be a lawyer. He goes, you're gonna be a lawyer? Okay. Standing, remember how they joke around with lawyers? The stairs goes to hell or something.
Yeah.
Right. But I said, good honorable profession. What are you gonna be? I says, I want to serve in public service, Okay, that's okay, right? Now, there's a second definition of that, of what a politician is. Someone who has an agenda, who has a thing to reap, the benefits and misuse, right? For their own personal wealth and stuff like that. There's a second negative connotation to
And
that,
that's
right?
what most people see politicians
Yeah, when they say,
as.
oh, you're a politician, Well, I'm happy to be a politician because I am in the business of government, right? And there's politics, I just finished saying that on the Fanogui forum, that the Robert Rogers, who wrote the book Destiny Landfall, what's the issue with the federal government in Guam? Why is it so on trying to get political self-determination? And he told the late former Governor Ricky Bordallo, was an advisor to him, and he used to work for the State Department. It's politics, And in politics, it's sometimes conflict that takes place, right? But I want to share the like what you said, the listeners are saying, just because you said I come from a political family. Okay, my uncle my grandfather BJ went to the States to visit FDR to ask him for U.S. citizenship, right? My Uncle Ricky, left his senior year, University of San Francisco, never graduated, but left to come back to Guam to get into politics, right? It took that courage from them to make those decisions. They didn't have a crystal ball to see where their destiny would be, where it would go, and so when it comes down to making the decisions, that I'm born in a family that's been political. I grew up with the Camachos. My brother Tony's classmate with Governor Felix Camacho, and class of '76, and. When we grew up in Tamuning, we moved from Magana Heights to Tamuning. We were around politics, whether it was the Bordallo Titano stickers that were put on to the Gutierrez Bordallo or the Camacho Mullen, and even Underwood, because my mom is the older sister of Robert Underwood. We're in a family of politicians. But I get a little bit pieces, I'll just say this to the listening audience. I get a little bit of pieces of their experiences of things. And that's why I did one time post that I don't believe in gutter politics. I don't believe in the politics of personal destruction. Let's just stay on the issues of what's real important about what's on my campaign. Recovering from this economy, getting people back to work again, right? And really recovering from our tourism market, right? Investing in our youth, getting into the substance abuse programs, for the ones who are family. We know a family member who's got into that kind of situation. That's the focus I'm going to have.
Do you have any? Does the Bordallo family have any business that does business with the government of Guam?
I can't think off on my head of the Bordallo business. All I know is my Auntie Arlene, she had family finance, and
okay.
But I don't think
His mom was a nurse.
My mom was a
right?
nurse. Oh, yeah. My sister Annie, she was running birthing center Saga, but they recruited her to go help out at GMH. When she sees all the paperwork, goes, that's a lot of paperwork. Welcome to government, right? But that's the only thing too. My sister Annie now moved over to.
Well then,
yeah. Great. I love it.
Yeah.
I didn't know about him being the chief and him uncover. I love it.
The Mandania thing. I mean, I'm sorry. The police corruption thing.
Yes.
And it just dawned on me this morning that was it. I was like, oh shoot, I almost cussed her. I was like, oh shoot, Fred actually did tackle police corruption. I just that.
Troy, one of the biggest things too, and the listening audience, they would make there were some comments that would be made not from your listening audience, but when I was chief, social media is very powerful, right? Why'd you have to accept that officer who got in trouble by accepting his resignation? I go, you want me to keep him employed? I mean, when an officer says it's time for me to resign and I'm out of here because maybe he thinks I'm going to fire him for violating his ethics, I'll take that resignation in a heartbeat. But we also put at the end of that resignation, resign under adverse action. That means the next chief of police, if that person tries to attempt to come back in, will see, hey, you didn't resign under honorable conditions. You resigned because there were adverse actions pending. Guess what? If that person attempts to come back into the department, the 60-day thing, it's going to start right there. Okay, this was the last thing they left off on, right? You're fired. You could be fired that first day. That's what the next chief of police could do.
Nice.
Fred, what is your? Do you believe that people who have allegations that a doctor committed malpractice against them or a loved one who has died have the right to access the courts directly?
Yeah. This is I think we're talking about this case malpractice and arbitration kind of thing, right? Yeah. And when I heard about that too, I was looking at it because I think Senator Therese Terlahi is working on some legislation. She's gathering the data information in that. So I'd be interested to look at what she's gathering. With her, she's real good, Senator Therese, as an attorney, to gather as much information on that. Now, what I also gathered is there was a recent ruling by Judge Bersinas finding it constitutional on the arbitration thing. But what I found out is Mr. Lebowski went to the district court and it's now filed there. That's pending right now.
Pending.
So I'm paying attention to that right now. But the most thing is that when I'm in the legislature to work with Senator Talahi, I'd be interested to take a look at that, of the data she gathers. The thing of course, a lot of things that are it can always happen, and it goes back and forth. Certainly, we want to make sure that any physician that's practicing here, especially that medical board, because they're considered professionals. How do they scrutinize a doctor that comes to choose Guam to practice on? Where did they get their schooling in? Are they
they
board
under
certifications?
investigation anywhere
Are their
else?
board certifications up to par?
Yeah.
Because you just don't let there should be any gaps to allow a quack. We call them quacks
Yeah.
to come in, right?
Yeah, thanks
With
for calling me that. Yeah.
a phony diploma to come in, right? And then
Or
someone dies because of that.
or a doctor who's been accused of sexual assault
On his patients.
on his patients.
Yeah, yeah,
We really need to pay attention to that.
So that's why I'm very adamant about looking at the details of that. I'll work with Senator Terlahi. I know she's going to make it into She works very hard, but I'll work in looking at the issues that she has on that. Right?
But just in not necessarily the Arbitration Act itself, but just generally, do you believe that these patients or their family members have a right to due process?
Yes, they have a right. I believe they do.
Okay.
Yep.
So then you would fall on the side of some kind of reform of this act.
Yeah, and that's why I said I would follow Senator
Okay,
Therese
okay.
Terlahi, what she's doing, gathering that information for the reform
Coolio.
that she's pursuing on.
Going back to the medical board, because you said something interesting that reminded me of something that the medical board told Mr. Lubowski.
Yeah.
And that is that they license anyone who meets
The bare minimum.
the bare minimum qualifications.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess that's what bare minimum qualifications are for, but it's not a very reassuring thing for a person. Patient
Just
like me, you know what I mean?
the perception, of that. Yeah, especially when you're dealing with, physicians, and where, I'll just full disclosure. I've been to GMH before, right? And I know what a life and death situation feels like. I'll tell you, right when that anesthesia was submitted to me, that anesthesia said, okay, 1, 2, and I was out. And you just lose your sense of time. It was 9 o'clock. I was in the operation room. And next you know, it's 9 a.m. There's my wife and daughter looking at me. Dad, you're alive. Thank God, right? And but just to think that the outcome could have been different. I have this appreciation of life now, and appreciation for the doctors, the hardworking medical physicians that we have working here on Guam, and the support that they need, and in terms of that. But at the same time, as any profession, they know that if they're going to choose Guam to be operating on, they better have their credentials, and they have to have everything all set there. They're going to be scrutinized because they have such great responsibility over life when they're a physician, and that's the tragedy, I think, also the situation of Mr. Lubowski, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fred, what do you think needs to be done with we're not talking about the lower level CSC, but rapists?
Yeah.
What do you think needs to be done with rapists? What do you think the law should say about how rapists are
Are let back into the
sentenced and-
community.
Yeah. See, this is where my corrections experience comes from. From working in 3 correction facilities, where Department of Corrections is now, even Guam. What happens, and is it overcrowding, or is it they're not overcrowding? What's the principle of plea bargaining, and where did that come from? My dad was a corporate lawyer, although he wasn't a criminal lawyer, he was a corporate lawyer, right? But every now and then he would get a criminal case that he'd be, when it's your turn, you get zapped to represent a client, right? They have to represent them the best of their ability. Every attorney, if you're not, the Guam bar, when you get a complaint against you as an attorney, not being representative of your client, trying to get the best for them, right? And when it comes down to those things about an act like that, a violent, remember, like I said, my sister's, partner, Dr. Ellen Best, did the Healing Hearts, right? And when I was chief, I used to work with her about these sexual assault victims and stuff and all that, and the trauma that they go through, right? And now they have to be brought before the court, right? And what do when there's a conviction? They put your sexual, they put them, you're now open. You can't, when you go into a community, you better be reporting your
where you're at, where you're living. Yeah.
But they don't spend much time in jail.
Yeah. Now, what's the reason? What is the reasoning for that? What is the rate of that? What does the data say on that? Right? about the amount of sexual offenders getting not having to serve time in prison and actually serving a full time in prison. Are we a little bit more of a liberal community?
It seems like it.
Yeah. Yeah,
I mean, I don't have the
perception.
data in front of me, but anecdotally,
Yeah.
it really does seem like drug offenders, nonviolent offenders, get longer sentences than violent offenders like rapists.
Yeah. The approach I like to use is asking these hard questions with the individuals who have that data and bring them in so that the public can be very aware. It says, in our Department of Corrections right now, we have this much detainees. Out of this detainees, these are the ones that are in for violent offenders for criminal sexual conduct. Out of all of them, this is the average time they spent behind bars, right? When there's a plea deal, is it because the police did a sloppy job? Where's the AG's report on that to the Guam police? To the Guam Police Department says the reason why we had to did a plea deal is because your rape investigator did a sloppy job and didn't get this evidence that was needed. So we were left with a plea out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are
That's
those
so
some of the
sad.
things?
That's so sad.
Are those the things we're not seeing? These are the kind of things we need to be able to see. As a community.
What if? So let's play a game of what if.
Yeah.
What if, when you get all that data, it shows that the real issue is that these guys or girls, whatever, are just not being sentenced for very long.
Yeah.
And that's all it is. That the stuff goes to trial, and they get 4 years, maybe 6 years, maybe 10 years.
Yeah.
And they're young enough so that they come, like Paul Moffness.
Yeah.
They're able to come back out, or they're able to apply for parole and actually be paroled and come back into the community just to reoffend. Because if you were in corrections, then you know that it's a sickness and that there's just hardly any therapy or rehabilitation that you can do to change a pedophile.
Yeah.
So as a legislator, if you got that information and that data and it was just sentencing, would you change the sentencing?
Well, see, that's the whole thing too. And I'm going to share this. When my first criminal law class that I took, guess who was the instructor at GCC? It was Judge Abati, right?
Oh, he's a tough guy, right?
Yeah. So he went like this to me. He goes, Fred Bordallo, I was a student, criminal justice student there before I joined the police department. He goes, do you want mandatory sentences for us, Judge? Do you want to take away our judicial discretion? And I said, well, before you answer, he said, let me tell you this. Do you have discretion when you're about to give a ticket, Or can you give a person a break and say, I'll give you a warning?
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, I have the police discretion. I don't necessarily have to give a ticket. So he goes, okay, now here I am. Let's say the circumstances that I'm looking at, the report comes from, from the prison, how that person's conduct is in prison, He's not he's not beating up people, he's not a member of a gang in there or whatever. He's serving good time, you call it, because it's really the confinement alone that's the punishment, right? When you're ever in a jail or in corrections, it's the confinement alone. And when Judge Abati said that to me, it had that powerful thing where I said, wow, that'd be tough to take your judicial discretion away. I'm not in your seat as a judge to sit down and look at the prosecution side, the defense side, what the defendant side, no matter how heinous that it's a rape case, right? And she.
But what about community discretion? What about that parents? I can imagine any reasonable parent who wants to protect their child will never, for as much as they legally could, would want any rapist,
that's right,
who would prey on that child to never be able to see that child ever, and it's because that rapist unfortunately offended and went to jail. And
from our side, what we would want to do is just put that person in a jail cell
and leave them there forever.
And leave them there forever, right?
Or someplace, doesn't have to be a jail cell, just someplace where we'll never be around children again.
Around children again, right?
Is there's,
I'll tell you this, those are, see how we talk about this that comes up, is there any other options to do? You're not allowed it around any children right now, besides as a sexual predator. Are there any other steps that must be taken in the corrections facility that has to deal with that individual right now who's been identified as a sexual predator?
Or
you
a
know?
separate
Yeah.
facility
Yeah.
for people
Yeah.
like that. Just
I'll
I
tell
think the goal is
I'll
you
tell
don't
you
want
this,
them around children.
Troy, you know, in the culture of the prison systems that I work for out there, the sexual predators, the ones they target whenever there's a big major riot in the prison, they go after them first.
That's part of the honor system
Yeah,
in jail.
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
something like that. But you know, us as a society, no matter how, you know, the thing is, we're not a barbaric society. We're a society that believes in human rights too, right? And sometimes
I believe when you hurt a child, you lose those rights.
Yeah. No, but what I'm saying is, you know, as a military, like even in the military, even when I went off on, you know, even when we're going off on missions and what kind of the criminal justice system isn't so perfect. There's some imperfections in them. As a lawmaker, I get what you're saying, Troy, about that.
You
Can I
have
come
the
and make a difference?
prerogative
Can I do things to make it a little bit more for where there's justice in this, right? Justice on the victim side, because I'm pro on the victim side, right? Versus the criminal side.
I think in this case, it's more about preventing further crime against these kids.
Yeah.
So once you offend, once you're convicted of the offense, you know that person, if it's at this stage, not this stage of CSC, but this stage of CSC, you know that person, given the opportunity, is going to reoffend.
You know, before they didn't allow first. Did you know the Guam Police Department, way when I came in '86, they allowed us as guys to interview rape victims, even if it's a woman. They stopped that. And, you know, I said, hey, you go see a male doctor, you know, so what's the difference if I'm a police officer taking care of the criminal sexual conduct? I can just do as much of a good investigation as a woman police officer, right? But they frowned on that and they took that thing away from us, right? But I'm telling you my experience, Troy, when I had this lady, she was a military lady who was in an apartment up there. The guy broke into the window and raped her, you know, and she was so traumatized, right? By that rape, and can you imagine how she would tell her family, I was stationed in Guam and I got raped and there's the compassion part of me. Remember I said courage and compassion? The compassion part of me to say, wow, this is what can we do to help these individuals out, right? Now as a lawmaker, that's my compassion part too, of the victim side, that I just want to say to the individuals who suffer from that, who have been victims like that, right? I have that compassion. Now, can we do it in a pragmatic way, you know, to deal with reforms on criminal sexual conduct without it getting overturned, you know, like you know, from the feds, because federal laws trump, you know, local legislation, you know, stuff.
So to be clear on this issue about as a legislator, and I understand that there are several facets to this thing. I believe me, I understand it. Well, would you do things? Would you create legislation or vote for legislation or whatever that one increases the sentencing guidelines for rapes against children, rapes on children, and two, I guess, create some sort of program, facility, whatever, to keep these criminals from re-entering
I would
society.
support that. The ultimate goal is to prevent recidivism, you know. The ultimate goal too is that when these individuals are serving their time, right?
But the goal also is to make them think twice.
Yeah.
You know?
There's some deterrents in that, right?
Oh, from ever offending.
Yes.
From ever offending. From ever offending.
In the first place,
And that's the complexity to it. What's happening at Department of Corrections too, right? How are you dealing with the ones, I mean, like I said in the other interview of the other media when I was interviewing, the Department of Corrections isn't a drug rehabilitation center.
Oh, it's
not. It's not.
It's
you know,
it's a it's a place where you learn how to
you learn how to be a better criminal.
Yeah. And
more enterprising.
But it should be, you know. I mean, there's a lot of ideas I think I have to when I meet if I'm in the public when I'm in the Senate, when I'm in the legislature. Believe me, and I see the director. There's some there's some things that I want to approach with what to do with the correction, especially the guard force. You know, you never want to serve a whole career being a turnkey. Are there other advancements you can do? Now, in the naval correction field, you can go to correction counselor. So if you entice those corrections guards to go to school, take a psychology course, get an associate's degree, you might get into the correctional counseling portion. And that makes it a little bit more saving money. And some of that correctional counseling can get into sexual urges and stuff like that, right? Treatment for that too. To deal with individuals who
People might not know, but the highest turnover rate in the government of Guam is at DYA first, and at DOC.
Yeah, DOC.
And the highest rate of PTSD, whatever, is at DOC.
Yeah.
Yeah, but can you believe that DYA is the highest turnover rate among the law enforcement officers?
And that's because they probably cannot handle, because these are the kids that are.
They are devil children. I'm just kidding. I am just kidding. They are kids who need a chance.
Yes. Well, my son Freddie, he's a musician. He's a drummer in 4-piece band, right? One time he worked at the pay school, and then after less than 2 months, he goes, "Okay, Dad, I don't want to work at that." Why? I said, just. They need a little bit of inspiration,
those are the
right?
kids who have been cast away by family, society, and they
You have to
just
choose
need a
one
chance.
and then pass it to
They
me.
need some inspiration, the hope that
Yeah.
it's not the end. Just choose one right here.
And give it to
then
Donna.
give it to
Oh,
me
okay.
and I'll read it.
Okay.
Yeah, my parents.
Wow,
should've
was the
put me
time
in
going
DY.
by really fast?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
What is something you resent paying?
What is something I resent paying?
Yeah.
Taxes.
So would you vote to reduce taxes?
Middle class needs a tax break too, man. I'm telling you,
nice.
just the more money we make, that my wife and I make, that we earn, all of a sudden they want to tax the hell out of us, right?
Yeah, and because you have no more dependents, because all the kids are old.
Hey, I know our Candelaria. I bet you quite a few of them just committed to voting for you just for that.
Just
for that
we have
tax
a lot
break
of
thing.
we have a lot of middle class that want to fight.
The government's gonna have to be a little bit more innovative, how to manage their monies for these next 2 years and beyond with the economic situation we're at, and so there can't be any misspending. We have to be very hardcore in saying, what are you using it for? When I was veterans director, I had a auxiliary volunteer program. I wanted to get a rotation of different veterans, and some of them helped with my inventory of property. But, even if it's a stipend, just like the police reserve program, that helps out and rotate it around with veterans, then giving the next list, just to get them back into doing something. It's dignity. They call it the economic advisor for Obama and Clinton. This guy, what do you call that? Said it's economic dignity, right? People don't want to line up for handouts. They actually want to get back to work. They want to get back to normal with the situation that's happening.
I want to go on a vacation.
You want to go on a vacation?
Fred, you get to spend some time with our candid audience in that camera right there, and don't forget to at the end to ask them to vote for you. That's
Okay.
So
Whatever number you are on the ballot.
Okay, thank you. First of all,
Wait. Is Kandit real news?
Candid is real news.
All right.
Thank you. No technology crashed on me with on the previous time. I would say I have the camera on. I just like to say to all the Candid listeners, thank you for having the opportunity to listen to some of the views I have for the next 2 years and beyond. The legislature, the 36th Guam legislature, is going to be. Those senators going to be counted on to make hard decisions, and my dad as an attorney and my mom. My dad passed away, but my mom also as a nurse. They've been in some tough situations just to raise 9 boys and 2 girls in our family.
Whoa.
And it took a lot of courage and compassion, and that's what it's going to take to that leadership quality of the policymaker to make these tough decisions. The most important law in the legislature is the budget law. And we're already seeing that there may be could be some possible shortfalls. So the decisions are going to be made where that goes to. A lot of people are out of jobs. The tourism sector has went down with a lot of hotel operations, affected. Some retail members of the retail industry are down. So it's going to take, again, some crucial hard decisions, and you can count on me. And plus, at the same time, my second thing is our youth and our education. And those that I said, my other focus is going to be on the situation we have with crime in terms of those that have been addicted to drugs, the drug situation. We can't just count on enforcement, on just enforcement. We need to look at the substance abuse and the treatment and the education. The substance abuse treatment is the biggest thing, because people can't afford to go off island. As a senator, as your senator, I'm going to make it that by the time I finish my term as a senator, there will be a substance abuse treatment facility for people who need to go there, besides just New Beginnings and others. I'm just going to say that outright. I'm going to vow to do that. That's my goal. Thank you. I'm number 6, the Democrat ballot. Bibagua. Thank you.
You have to ask them to vote for you.
Please, I humbly ask you for your vote. Number 6 in the Democrats ballot. Thank you.
It's amazing to me how many candidates always forget that.
Oh, yeah.
The please vote for me. It's like the only thing you're supposed to ask.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Okay,
coming on the
thank you.
show.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for sharing the night with us.
All right.
And for having the positions that you had. I'm very much impressed, Fred. Thank you so much. Thank
All right.
you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you, Candyland. Good night, everybody. I'm Johnny Rosario.
I'm Troy Torres.
And I'm Fred Bordallo.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.